Hello everyone, this is the first stream. So I'm just testing if everything works. Seems to. So let's get started then. Alright, so I am Luke. I got this website, LukeGG. I now am hosting it locally. This is my editor where I've got my TypeScript, React, and also Node.js in the backend. Yeah, I'm here to show you how to build websites, how to just do web development. That's the goal here. So I made a list of things that I think would be nice to know if you want to work with this stuff professionally. So I guess I'll just go down this list. The first part of this list I already did, like I wrote it out, kind of how to create a local website. I did some smaller stuff, but now I realized that it's going to get way more complex and I want to do it in a more interesting, casual way. I want to make the rest of my content. So I'm just going to show it this way. I do want to open the chat, by the way, so I don't know how I would do this. I guess I'll just keep one open like this and just look at it manually myself from time to time. I mean, I'll have 0 viewers for a long time anyway, so it shouldn't matter too much for this first stream. Okay, so yeah, but while I do this, again, this is supposed to be more of a casual stream, not exactly one of my videos that I made before. So I just have a nice coffee here and I'm just going to take my time and do things slowly. So the first part, selecting elements, this is very interesting because web development, front end, you can do a lot of interesting stuff using inspect. All right, so you saw me right click inspect, and here you can already see elements, right? So this little piece of text here, the chapter not found, is right here, and I can select it. And on the right, you can see the styles that are added to this. So I can also change this. There you go, beautiful. Right, so and I can also show this in different devices. But anyway, so now there is things like I could select it, and now I can also go here and type $0, and then I actually have the reference to it in JavaScript. So this is more like this only works in the editor, in the console, like what you're seeing here, right? When I'm trying to select elements. In your editor, it would, like here in your code editor, you wouldn't have this. So let's see, what page am I on? I'm on the learn page, right? So there you go, learn. And here you see that I've got those pages, and I am on the selecting elements page. Selecting elements does active 4. So you can see here that's page 4. And then let's see, where do I keep this knowledge? Where do I keep this text? I have a route here, clearly. So there's a route for 4. And oh yeah, right. So I keep adding routes when I have something, and when I don't have it, then it has this final route at the end here, which has a chapter not found situation. So that's what you're looking at here. So you can see that there's a difference between the HTML that is rendered at the end, right, this thing, and what I'm writing. I'm writing React, right? So it's a bit more complicated. There's some extra components I can use that won't be shown once the page is actually finally rendered. But now you can see how you can, right click, inspect element, you can open these things up and you can see it highlights. That's all I want you to know how to do, really. That's it. So selecting elements and then knowing that there's style here, and you can change that, right? So I can remove the padding from all those buttons, and I can remove the background color, and I can remove the border left. If I remove all the styling, in the end you end up with nothing, right? So we do want to have that on. But of course, as soon as I refresh, all this stuff goes away. All my changes go away. I'm just temporarily changing it. There's also this other thing I can do. I can add hover effects. Like if I hover over it, this is what it would look like. So it's the same as actually doing it, but now you can do it here and then see the style that is applied to it, right? And the order is really important because whatever goes above this overwrites what is below here. You can see here that the background is being overwritten. It used to be a 0.1, right? So this is white, RGBA, red, green, blue, alpha. So this means white because it's the maximum values for all. Sometimes this is written as FFFFFF, or just the color white. And then is 0.1 at the end, which is the alpha, right? Because it's slightly see-through, or 10%, so it's a lot see-through. And then it changes to 20%, 0.2, when you hover, right? So that is how, and then this is because there's an extra class that's on it, or you're hovering over it. So if you hover over it, or there's an extra class on it active, because here you can see that selecting elements is right now active because I'm on that page. And that's why it gets the same styling as if I hover over it. And here you can see the rule that did this. And we can look at the CSS rule as well, which I have here. This is SCSS. And SCSS, of course, is a little bit more complicated than CSS because I can write inside of other rules. We don't need to go into too much detail for this right now, but here you can see that there is this list item, li, and there's these rules that I wrote, right? Here you can see that background I wrote, and I didn't have to do the red, green, blue stuff. I could just immediately write the color, right? White. And then I said, if I hover over it or it has the class active, then we increase that by 0.1, so it becomes 0.2. So that's how this styling is done. Perfect. Hey, I got a raid with a party of 1. Nice. Interesting, because I'm still the only viewer. Oh, the loneliness, the sad, sad loneliness of the beginning streamer. I'm really wondering who's gonna find this interesting, by the way. And of course, if there's anyone who actually has some questions, I can go over that. But until then, while I'm alone, I'll just go down this list. So let's go to the next one, defining colors. And defining colors is interesting because you already saw that there's multiple ways, right? Here you can see there is a hex version of doing it, which is the same as red, green, blue, because these first two are for red, these second two are for green, and these last two are for blue. So it is RGB. And if I want to do RGBA, the alpha, I'm going to have to use RGBA. There is actually also a hex with where there's an additional 2. So you have 8 hexadecimal characters to represent the color, but I don't think it's very supported. In fact, let me go to, can I use hex alpha? Here, hex color notation. Oh my god, look at the support. It's supported everywhere nowadays. That is so cool, and pretty recent as well. See, so here you can see this is a great website for what you can use in websites. And you can see that Internet Explorer, unfortunately, even version 11 does not support it. But then again, you don't have to care about Internet Explorer anymore. People use Edge, I believe, nowadays. And even if your website doesn't show the right colors, I mean, these people have chosen it themselves by going to a shitty browser. Right? I mean, people need to be pushed to a real browser. And these fake ones shouldn't even exist. So we have to push them out of the industry. But it depends on who you work for. I mean, if you work for a bank, I'm pretty sure that the bank is going to say, "Motherfucker, I wanted to work on every browser, and you're just going to have to work your ass off to make sure it works." And in that case, you can't use this. But again, I'm a bit I've been doing this for so long now that I kind of automatically never use this because I always feel like it's not supported. But I see nowadays that it actually has great support, so I could be starting to use it. But the thing is, I don't even have to care that much because I am using SCSS, which compiles to CSS, so I don't necessarily write write the final, like I don't write this RGBA, I don't write these 3 values. What I do is I just write white, comma, and this is not normal CSS. Normal CSS would actually break if you do this, right? So I write SCSS and it gets compiled, right? Now, how is this done? This is my development environment doing this for me, right? It's helping me a lot. By the way, you can just download this code, right? It's just online. But you can see here that, let me go to the actual package that's doing it. It's a combination of packages, by the way. You need to have, first of all, React scripts, this guy. This is my package.json file. This shows all the modules I'm using, all the stuff I'm using to build this website. Right, so in the client file of my app, because my app has an API and a client, right, of the website and the server. So the website is called the client, and that one has a package.json. Inside there, you can see that React scripts is used. That's the development environment. You can see it running here, right? It also hosts this thing, localhost 3000, stuff like that. And then you can see also that I have here Node SaaS installed. And SaaS is the thing that allows me to write SCSS, which is this stuff here, right? And this learn SCSS gets imported at the top of learn.tsx, right? Here it is. And this import basically says I need this styling to work. It doesn't matter, like it doesn't get scoped to this component. It's imported globally. So if I add styling here, that would change the body style. It would always be changed no matter if you're opening the learn page or not. So it's not really, this import could have been anywhere. It's a global import kind of, but I still always put it, in the component that I'm styling. And then the rule is that I have this class name on the outer part. I mean, this is my own personal rule. This is not a real rule part of web development. This is just how I develop apps, is that every component has the class name that is identical to the name with the capital as well, which is not very usual. Normally you would never use a capital, just out of a standard you would never use a capital in a CSS name, but I make an exception in this case because it's so special that it's the scoping one. It's the one that I put around everything. So you can see if I collapse this, that SCSS, I start with learn and everything is inside. Okay, but let's go back to colors, because this thing was supposed to be about defining colors, and I haven't defined many colors right now. I just showed you how to do RGBA. I explained to you that I'm using SCSS, which allows me to do this kind of stuff. But now let's play around with colors here, right? So this border left color, for instance, I'm going to change it. So I can click on it, and you can see here that this is my hexadecimal color changer. There's a color palette here too, and I can change it like this, and you can see a change here. But this is, I think, one of the worst ways to change it. It's better to shift click on this until you get, for instance, HSL, which means hue, saturation, and lightness, which is a much better way of doing it. Because now on the one part I can change the just the hue without changing the brightness or the saturation, which I think is better, right? Because usually you don't want to change this actually, or you want to have very specific numbers at hue. You don't want to have endless ones. I think it creates a very bad design in general. Now, hopefully, when you're working professionally, you actually work with a real designer, because I really can recommend that. I mean, what I'm trying to teach you here is to be a programmer, not a designer. But in the beginning, when you're still a little noob, then you're not going to work with a good designer. You're going to work on your own, and people are going to judge you for the design that you deliver, even though you're not a designer. So it's kind of sad, but so be it. I would say copy your ass off. I mean, I styled this thing myself too. I'm not a designer at all, I'm a programmer, so I kept it very simple. I mean, I like it this way, but many people probably don't. So what can I say? I mean, it's my personal website. It's not something I would build professionally. Because you need a designer. It's a really difficult job. Anyway, so HSL and saturation, I can increase that or decrease it. And you can see that the amount of color kind of slowly fades until you get this grayish, right? At 0, it's completely gray. And controlling it like this creates much more, you have much more control. Lightness, saturation, and hue. And I think this is how real designers, I mean, the designers I've worked with always use HSL as a kind of that's how they think about colors. That's how they separate it. They don't separate it red, green, blue, right? They separate it HSLA, right? So those are in my view, the real ways to do it. Now there is a way to really get nice color schemes. Color scheme designer. There was a new one. This one is great. So you want to define new colors for your interface, and then you just use something like this, and you end up with this color palette, and you can pick things, right? And the rule for me, I mean, again, I'm not a designer, but I would say if you have bigger surfaces, you don't want them to be as different from your color scheme. So if you have a dark color scheme, you don't want to have it too bright on too large of a surface. So when it's like a small little area like this, then you can go quite high in saturation and lightness, right? It doesn't really matter too much. It doesn't hurt the eyes too much. But now if I use this thing, select this core element, I'm trying to find, right, the element where I do the background color. It seems to be here. See? Now if I increase, so let me again shift click on that, HSL. Now if I increase the saturation too much and the lightness, why isn't it changing it? Oh, I'm changing color, which is useless because that's the text color. I want to change the background, right? So I want to shift click on that. There you go. Now if I increase the saturation here, you can see it gets way, like this is like a child website, you know what I mean? Like this is actually what I built when I was 10, something like this. Actually, I did yellow as a background, really bright yellow, and my eyes were hurting all day. It was really dumb. But you can see what happens when you increase the lightness and saturation too much, especially saturation. I mean, if you increase lightness, I guess it's fine. You're just going to create a light website, right? Which is possible. Um, you don't need to create a dark website. In fact, I think it's usually more professional to not do it dark, dark. But I like dark, especially for the eyes. You know, all my stuff is always dark, dark mode, dark mode, dark mode. A lot of programmers have that. I think it just feels nicer on the eyes. Nowadays, I have glasses though, pretty recently. So I guess the years and years and years of every day, 8 hour plus looking at screens. I think I'm probably on 10 hour plus every day. Kind of crazy. Anyway, how are we doing? We have now defined some colors. I've shown you how to, you know, how to change it. Um, Maybe it's interesting to know what you can put colors on, right? Because so you saw that there was color, there was background, um, color, background. There's border, right? So border left in this case. I can also overwrite this specifically border left color, right? You can specify this blue violet. There you go. Now you can see it's just being overwritten for this single thing that I've selected. And you can see it even puts that style straight up here. And you don't need to, I mean, this would not, if you refresh it, would go away like I told you, but you can use this to test things out and then put it over here in your SCSS if you want to save it, right? So borders can have colors. Um, yeah, I kind of think that's it. I mean, there's also pseudo elements that you can put colors on, but you would put it color on it by using the background or the border again. So background and border and the text color called color, those are really the main ways. There's also box shadow, CSS box shadow, which is a great way, and they can have colors too. So here you can see a red, a red shadow. You can see that this is a way a box shadow is done here right now. But again, you can just put that in here as well. There you go. That's my box shadow. And then I can again shift click on this. I can select it, change the alpha, make it a bit more see-through. I can do all kinds of things, white. And now I can use the arrows as well to, change the positioning or change like how much it diffuse or how precise it is. Anyway, so box shadows, and there's also an inset property, inset. Right, so now it's inside. Photoshop has these kind of options. So you're kind of the browsers nowadays can do a lot of clean stuff with shadows, etc. Okay, so those are all the kinds of ways that you can define a color, how you can select it. You can use the name, you can use the hex, you can use hex A, you can use RGB, HSL. And if you use SDSS, then it gets compiled for you so that it works on all the browsers, so you don't need to worry too much. And you can do tricks like this where you can have a color and you can and usually, by the way, what I do is I have a variable file that has my colors that I use, so that I don't have to keep repeating the code for it. I can just use the variable name. And this is great because that allows you, and also actually this is kind of important, I guess. For instance, if I want to use a red here, but I want to darken it, I have this mix in, right? So I can darken it by 5 or by 15 or by, actually, no, it doesn't work. I think 100 is probably the max. Oh, not even. I think I broke it, guys. Oh. I think every time you go over 100 it breaks and you need to refresh, it seems. Yeah. No, I didn't even know that. So yeah, you can see that I can darken it. There's also lighten, and there's some other mix-ins. So you need to search for, mix-ins SCSS. But you can change the color, and it's great because you base it off a base color that's in your variables, and you change it a little bit maybe. That's a great way of doing it. And if you want to make it a bit see-through, you can do that trick which you saw me do before with RGBA, where it takes a normal color in the RGB part, and then you just have to put the alpha part at the end. So for instance, 50%. Right, so now you can see that learn has RGBA, and then it has the color and 0.5 at the end. So this is a great way of defining your colors and mixing them, changing them dynamically using variables. Okay, now let's continue. We defined a bunch of colors. Nesting HTML. Oh, fuck. Oh, I didn't realize we were at such a basic level, because I was already kind of showing you a lot of nested stuff, right? Like you have learn, and inside of that is a UL, it's an unordered list, and inside of there's a list item. So this is called nesting because the li is inside of the ul, is inside of the div, is inside of the main, is inside of the other div. So, and you can see there's multiple things inside of the app div, right? So this is called a div, and it has a class app, and inside there's a header and there's a main, right? Those two. And so those two are nested in app, and then these things are nested in the header, and so that's what it's called, is nesting. And it's very simple. I mean, let's take a look, for instance, at the core one, index. So it starts off here in React with the router, and inside of it is the provider, and inside of it is the app. And I think these things I can't talk about it yet because we're just at the beginning, right? So in fact, I think what I'm doing for this example, we're at such a start, such a beginning area where I'm just teaching the basics. I'm basically using something like this. So this is a full React environment that I'm showing, but we can also go to a super basic website. Let me go to the public folder and save this as test.html. Right, so now I should be able to go to test.html here. So this is my really basic website. Let me put it on the side. Oh, I can't see the chat now. Well, it's okay. Okay, so here now we have a much more basic environment. We don't have SCSS, we don't have React. We just have a very simple website with a background. And in fact, let me just change this to white and then this to some soft dark. Oof! Oh god, the pain. Grayish. Oh, this looks terrible. All right, well, so be it. Let's keep going. So now I can show you nesting in a much simpler way, right? So I think this is a probably better place to start. So we have div hi. Inside of this, I'm gonna put a strong by, and now I can style that by saying the div is gonna be background red, and then since it's not SCSS but CSS, I have to put it below here. In SCSS, you can just write the strong here and it will automatically be scoped. It will say find all the strongs inside of divs. In this case, if I want to do it, I should do it like this. I can also say all the divs that are directly inside of, all the strongs that are directly inside of div, which is like this. But in this case, I guess I'll do it just like this, which means all the strongs inside of div, no matter how far. So if I put other divs here, it doesn't matter. As long as there's a strong that eventually is inside of the div, then it will be found. It'll match this rule, right? So now I can say background purple. And I have to refresh every time I change something, by the way. Oof, that is ugly, ugly, ugly. But you can see here that and strong automatically made this font size bold, right? I can select it. You can see that the strong is here selected, but the user agent style sheet is adding this font weight bold. Now I can undo that, by the way. I can just say font weight normal, right? Which normalizes it again. But I mean, if you're going to use a strong, it's usually because you want things to be bold, right? So you can define it to be sure. Again, it's actually also more normal to define it in an exact number, because what does bold mean? I think bold by default means 800. But there's also font sets sometimes where you have 700 or 900. You know, it's a number usually, and bold is not exactly very precise. So a number I think is usually better to use. Anyway, doesn't matter. So I'm showing you that this is nesting of HTML, and then you can select that nested stuff here in your CSS, right? So that is a good example. Okay, so now we can delete all that nonsense here and your website is going to be very clean again. Let's see if there's something else that we can show. We need to go back to, well, I'll just go to the normal website and go down the list. Using colors, nesting HTML, embedding YouTube. Oh, I don't know why I did this. I mean, it's why I wrote this. I guess it's so simple. In fact, I think I've already done it, right? On the main page, there's a YouTube embedded here with me explaining my open source account system. So let's go to that and show you how I imported it, right? This is the dashboard, I guess. I haven't opened this code in a while, so I'm kind of guessing. Here it is. And you can find this code on every YouTube video that allows embedding, right? It's an option that a YouTube video can have. You can just find this code and copy it. So it's a very, I don't even know why I added it to because it's so simple to do, right? Like you just paste that in and it works. That's it. Any normal HTML page, this will work. Now I can also style this, of course. So I can say frame. I think this should override. Let me check. Yeah. So this width overrides this. Now with video, it's a bit interesting because you can see it cuts it off, right? Which is annoying because the height is still 594 while the width is 50%. Now, theoretically, you want to maintain a certain ratio, right? That's what you would like to do. You would like to have a ratio between the width and the height because that's how videos work. They're 16 by 9 or 16 by 10 or 3 by 4 if you have those, or 4 by 3 if you have those old videos. But it's proportional, so you don't want that height to be absolute, and making it a percentage won't help because this height is a percentage of the height of the window, right? So even if you originally find a good height, somebody can change this by like, let's say we take 100% here. Oh, okay, wait, 100% of what? So the body, let me make the HTML and the HTML and the body height 100%. Because I just want to show you an example why using percentages won't work. Like, see that you can just change it, and then your ratio messes up again of your video. It doesn't scale the width depending on the height, or vice versa. Now there's a trick, and this is a very advanced trick, but I guess it's good to show you because if you're gonna be embedding videos, um, then this is a really nice trick to know. So I'm gonna create something called a video container. Just gonna give it that class. I'm gonna put this thing inside. I'm actually gonna just remove this width and height because it's useless to me anyway. I'm gonna style it this way. Now I'm gonna say that the iframe is gonna be 100% width and height because I'm gonna make it change the video container itself. Because there's this trick that I can do. So for instance, I'm just gonna start off with 500 pixels width and a height of 200 pixels, whatever. Alright, now this won't be perfect yet because now it doesn't scale, right? It's always going to be 500 by whatever here. So let's say this video container, you can see 500 by 200. This is not dynamic, this is hard-coded. But now we want this height to be not defined in percentages, not defined in pixels. We want it defined purely and only through padding. That's the trick. Because there's this thing with padding. So first of all, what we want to do is we want to make sure this iframe is not in the way. So we're going to position it absolute. So it kind of leaves the page and hovers inside of the video container. This video container will need to be relative. And this is, okay, this is quite an advanced trick. Let me put it forward. Like, this took me many years before I learned this trick. But now this iframe is absolute, top left 0, width height 100%. So it is hovering exactly inside of the video container. And the video container is relative, so this absolute is positioned to this relative. Okay, perfect. So now what we can do is we can disable the height. Nothing is visible because again the iframe is not taking up any space because it's absolute, which is what we wanted. But now what I can do is I can add padding, 20%, whatever, 0. And now I can change this to be so that this kind of perfectly fits, right? Let me see, 9 point whatever. So I don't want to see any black bars. I think this is pretty okay. I mean, this should be pretty okay right now. So this is the ratio I want. And now you can see that the width, if I change the width, it scales. Okay, it's taking the percentage of the padding is of the parent. So let's pick 100% here. And instead use the body to, for instance, add a padding of 200 pixels. I just want to, make it a bit more visible. So let's make it a bit smaller here. Okay, great. And now I want to have the right padding. In fact, I'm only going to apply it to one side. And let's increase it until I get the perfect. I'll put this on the left side while I play with it. There, that should be good. Something like that, right? And now when I change the width, it scales the video as a ratio. keeping it perfect with no black bars. This is the trick. And the reason why this works, by the way, is because, and it's such a hack, it's such an incredible hack, is because the padding, this percentage it's the top padding, right? Because padding works by defining top, right, bottom, left, right? Those are the 4 values. I can even click on this arrow here and I can show you top, right, bottom, left, right? That's what I'm defining. So I could have also set padding top, and then I can delete these zeros. That would work as well, right? But the reason this works is that padding is always a value of the width when you use a percentage. So even though it's padding top, it is using a percentage that's based on the width of the parent container, I believe. So that's why it only works if you have 100%. So you can also make this 50%, but then you would have to cut this by 50% manually yourself as well. But okay, irrelevant. What's relevant is that this is a wonderful way of maintaining a ratio. And that's how your iframe can be sized. So your iframe is absolute, your container is relative, and you put a padding top on it or bottom, and then you can have dynamic width and height. It maintains a specific ratio that you would want for your video. Okay, so this this is, I don't think this was supposed to be that hard of a lesson to embed YouTube, because to embed it basically is very simple. You just copy paste that value. But if you want a really scalable video player, then you're gonna have to dive into the depths of hell, basically. All right, how are we doing? Still 1 user, me, looking at myself, sad. No questions, very good. Alright, let's create a basic server, I guess. I'm wondering if the audio is still working. Yeah, it is. Okay, great. A basic server. So you already saw me use a local server, which is done by React scripts. But maybe now I want to set up my own API, because I've been doing a lot of client programming here. But the API is also super interesting. It's with Node.js. And we can look at how this is done. It's very straightforward. Here we have a server, HTTP create server, listen, and you're done. This is the whole thing. But I guess I'm gonna have to make a new one just to show you how it's done. So I'll just create a new folder, test. I'll put a new file in here, index.ts. Shall I use TS? I think I'll use JavaScript for now, just to keep things even more simple. And I won't use, I mean, these are process environment settings, stuff like that. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say I'm going to start on 1337. I'm going to start it. I'm going to have a request and response. I'm going to always say that it's 200 okay. Text plain, response, and hello world. Perfect. This is a great way, I think, to start. We don't even need to define that server. This is it. Right? So now we're going to start another PowerShell here. We're going to go to test, and we're going to type node index. Oh, well, that didn't work. Oh, I forgot content type. My bad. A little too quick with the writing. HTTP is not defined. Ah, I also forgot to import my my HTTP there, but it's a core module, so you don't need to install anything. You just need to know. Oh, can I use import? Oh, because import is more of I mean, in TypeScript it's a default you would use, but now I can use require, I guess. So I can say HTTP is require HTTP. There, I can do it like that. I think this should work. Hey, it works. So now if I go to localhost 1337, hello world, right? Perfect. Now we can look at this. I refresh and I will go to I will look into my network tab for all the requests I'm making. You can see there's 2 requests. Every time I refresh, there's 2 requests. One is for the favicon, which returns nothing. I mean, it returns the same thing, hello world, so that's wrong. Because a favicon is this little image here. So that's why you see it's displaying nothing, because it's not actually. And the browser will automatically try to request this, right? It'll automatically try to get this file. I'm not giving it right now. So, or not correctly at least, I'm giving it a wrong response. So it's not showing anything because it's supposed to show an echo file, right? But the local host here, this is the response. This is the request that the main request that I really want to do. And the response is hello world. You can see that is exactly the text it sends. And then in the header, it says the content type is text plain, right, in the response headers. In the request header, it was like, oh, I would like to see, I would like to get HTML, and I would like to, I accept this kind of encoding and this language, and I would like no cache. I would like to get a real response from the server. Here's some cookies from Google, apparently, that is on localhost. Nice one, Google, thank you. So there's all kinds of headers in the request, but the response is very simple. It just text plain, and this other stuff has been added by Node.js themselves by the default server configuration settings. But you saw that I didn't do anything. I just, you can change any of these headers, but I just, this is a very straightforward script. Let's put it that way. Okay, so now let's make it a bit more complex. Let's say application. I think it's application HTML. Oh no, text HTML, probably. I always forget. Text HTML. This is called a media internet type. Beam type HTML. Just double checking. Text HTML. See, you can see it's hypertext markup language has to go with text HTML. So that's what I'm doing now. Content type. And now I can say here div I, and everything should be, oh right, so I need to re-execute my server because it doesn't automatically restart. But now you can see hi, even though I wrote div hi, because it knows that it's HTML. So inside of this body it now has div hi, right? So this is how I can send HTML in a very straight basic way. Yeah, what can I do? I mean, first of all, we can say, for instance, here, if the request URL is favicon.eco, then we can return response end. So we stop immediately. We don't even do anything else. Right? This is just because we don't want to respond a fake, like a. So now when I refresh, let's see, favicon. Oh, do I need to restart the server? Classic. So now we see nothing as a response, right? Which I guess is better than what we were doing before. Before we were sending the normal response also when you go to favicon.eco, which we don't want to do. But now you can go to anything, right? And you always get this hi back, always. That's why we don't check the request URL. We just send the same back. Now we can also send the request URL back. Here, let me do it like this. Right, so now I'm going to send back whatever the URL was that you connected to. Right, so this is a great, I'm showing you that the server understands what you asked for and it's going to respond. But it's just going to write it directly back to you. It's kind of pointless, but now you know a really, really, really basic server. Like, this is the most basic server you can think about. But I just made it. Oh, I'm getting a bit tired. It's 6 a.m. I I had a little 2-hour sleep, but that's it. So I think I'm gonna end it here. We did selecting elements, using colors, nesting HTML, embedding YouTube, and creating a very basic server. Now, next up will be some more advanced, requests from a client to a server. XML HTTP request, XHR. JavaScript object notation, JSON, Flexbox, some really nice stuff coming up. And in the end, you'll be able to make exactly what I built here, right? Just like LeakGG, a website like this. All right, well, I'll see you then with the next stream. And thank you for watching the first stream. Cheers.